The chair recognizes the honourable member for Kalani.
I don't need your help in that regard. You were quiet while they was hatching the BPL deal. You won't say a word. Mums is the word. You sat there quiet like meek and mild. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. First, allow me to thank the member for Exum and Ragged Island for yielding, knowing that I have other business to deal with. I want to, before I start, congratulate the member for Tall Pines for bringing this piece of legislation here. And I thought yes, all legislation has room for improvement, but I thought it was a good start. Mr. Deputy, I rise today in this House to give my contribution on behalf of the Kalani constituency to the Cannabis Bill 2024. How we treat cannabis in the Bahamas is outdated. The bill brings sweeping changes to our cannabis laws. It will establish the Bahamas Cannabis Authority and a framework to regulate the cultivation, production, the sale, distribution, and use of cannabis in our country. More specifically, the bill operates under a framework of legalizing cannabis for medical, scientific, commercial, and religious reasons. It does not, I repeat, it does not legalize cannabis for recreational use. The bill, Mr. Deputy, does decriminalize possession of small quantities of cannabis by creating a fixed penalty notice system, or in common terms, a ticket. And those found illegally in possession of small amounts of cannabis outside of what is allowed in this law could pay their ticket and not have a criminal record. The ticket would be for $250. I support this significant legal change. However, Mr. Deputy, along with others, I do not think it goes far enough. Allowing medicinal use of cannabis was legislated by many countries decades ago. The science and medical advice on this is clear and many, many decades old. In passing this law, we are following the old practices. Mr. Deputy, it is my view, and I stress, it is my view, that the Bahamas should fully legalize cannabis for commercial and recreational use. Uruguay, Canada, and Thailand have fully legalized cannabis. Several other countries have legal regimes with full implementation pending in various ways. Uruguay in South America was the first country to fully legalize cannabis in 2013. In the United States, Mr. Deputy, in the United States, 24 states have fully legalized cannabis. And medicinal cannabis is legal in 38 states in the US. Although cannabis remains illegal at the federal level in the US, there are signs that liberalization is coming.
Yes, I agree.
And last spring, the US Drug Enforcement Administration began the move to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Cannabis has various uses. Commercially, it can be used to produce biofuel, auto parts, paper, fiber for cloth, upholstery, and other textile items. Some, like the Rastafarians, use it for religious purposes. Many use it recreationally, as they do with various wines and spirits. Some use it for medicinal reasons. We should consider alcohol and cannabis in similar terms. Both may be used recreationally. In moderation, they can be used responsibly. However, abuse can lead to health and behavioral problems. And the Minister of Health, being a physician, would be well aware. He would recognize, and he's well aware of the challenges we used to face within the hospital with DTs and other side effects from alcohol. Nonetheless, we allow adults to use alcohol with rules. There is a minimum age to buy alcohol. There are regulated vendors for the sale of alcohol. There are hours when it can be sold. You are not allowed to drive while intoxicated with alcohol. And similar rules should be put in place for the recreational use of cannabis. It is time, Mr. Deputy, that we legalize it and allow people to make their own decisions on its use. I believe in personal responsibility when it comes to adults and issues such as cannabis. I do not drink. I do not smoke. These are the choices I have made. They are my choices. Some people drink and or smoke. That is their choices. They hold jobs.
Members, order.
Mr. Deputy, let them put my 2 minutes back.
Yeah.
Let them put my 2 minutes back.
Watermelon lemonade.
No, I don't drink alcohol, but I eat it. I eat rum raisin ice cream. I eat rum cake. I eat ice cream from Tipsy Scoop, alcohol-infused ice cream. But after a few spoons of alcohol of the ice cream, I take my bed because I am tipsy. Mr. Deputy, these individuals hold jobs, they raise families, they pay their taxes, and are responsible members of society. We should not continue to criminalize cannabis in this day and age. We must allow consulting adults to make their own choices. When we pass this law, the police would still be able to accost someone in possession of a small amount of cannabis who did not get it via this law. We do not need the police to bother people who want to smoke cannabis. The police have more important work than that to do. We need our police officers to find murderers and rapists and armed robbers. We do not need them spending their time issuing tickets to people who have small amounts of cannabis. Cannabis, Mr. Deputy, is not more dangerous than alcohol. Therefore, I see no reason why it should be treated differently. Indeed, Mr. Deputy, overwhelmingly, more people die of alcohol-related deaths than cannabis. And through public and school-based education, the state should teach people about the responsible use of alcohol and cannabis, including abstention if desired. This is the new path we should move along rather than retaining prohibition against the use of cannabis for recreational use. We know from our own history and the history of many other jurisdictions that prohibition does not work. It has proved expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. Mr. Deputy, I know the governing party is not yet where I am at with this issue. I would advise them to commission a report of what a legal cannabis industry would look like in the Bahamas. We may learn lessons from the countries that have legalized and the ones that are about to, in order to bring such best practices to our Bahamas. The governing party is set to pass this bill. May I make a suggestion to help make the proposed legislation better? As mentioned, those found with illegal possession of small amounts of marijuana could just pay a ticket under this proposed law, rather than being arrested and charged as exists now. The projected price of the ticket at $250 is too high. That is a week's wage for some people. I recommend that we amend that amount downward to $50. If the point of this bill is to decriminalize small possession, the ticket price should not be as high as proposed. Only an idea, suggestion. I know the big timers on the governing side thinks that $250 is no money. But for ordinary Bahamians, that is a high fine. Mr. Deputy?
Order, members.
Mr. Deputy? Deputy?
It's a toss-up.
It is necessary for me to make a few remarks on the serious and deeply disturbing allegations of corruption facing the Royal Bahamas Police Force. The Bahamian people know there are many, many good men and women on the force, protecting our lives, communities, and properties. The police make great sacrifices. They leave their families and loved ones at home while they take the streets day and night to save and protect us. That is a great sacrifice, and I think the Bahamians should publicly thank the police on many occasions for the work they do. Because of these good men and women, it is essential that we root out those who may be engaged in a variety of potentially widespread corrupt practices. And many knows my views and my feeling about corruption. Corruption is dangerous and wrong for any society because it costs the world 5%. To lose 5% of that GDP. It breeds poverty. Bahamians are frightened by what they are seeing in the national and international press. Bahamians are worried and anxious about the flood of allegations they are seeing on social media. And with the extraordinary level of crime and gang activity in the country, we need to know the depth of the problem. We need to know how pervasive corruption may be in one of the most important institutions of the state. Given its primary role in national security, the senior command and officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force must be trusted to protect citizens and to refrain from corrupt practices, including any criminal activities associated with gangs. The allegations we are seeing are some of the most serious in an independent Bahamas. They are also among the most serious since the drug era of the 1970s and 80s. Let me repeat, they are also among the most serious since the drug era of the 70s and 80s. I have often spoken of the effects of that era, many of which are still with us. The poisonous era destroyed many individuals, communities, and families. It corrupted politicians, police, and defense force officers, lawyers, and members of the judiciary. Those at the very highest levels of our country benefited, even as young and old became addicted to crack cocaine. The Bahamian people, Mr. Deputy, are alarmed by the current allegations. I support the appointment of a commission of inquiry. Accordingly, I ask the Prime Minister to invite the Governor General to appoint such a commission. Again, the explosive allegations with our force regarding bribery, corruption, and possible complicity in murders are the most serious allegations to rock the Bahamas since the drug days. A commission of inquiry should make a diligent and full inquiry into the prevalence of criminal gangs in our Bahamas. It should investigate among the following: 1, the leadership of such gangs; 2, the influence of such gangs in communities and islands throughout our Bahamas; 3, the involvement of such gangs in illegal activities, with particular reference to illegal firearms, dangerous drugs, and any other illicit activities; 4, the relationships that such gang leaders and members may have with senior law enforcement officers, inclusive of the police, defense force, and immigration, and the influence that they may have upon such officers, if any; and 5, the relationships that such gang leaders and members may have with elected members of Parliament, and the influence that they may have upon such MPs, if any; and finally, allegations made to improper acts that tend to undermine confidence in the police force or individual police officers. I think, Mr. Deputy, the Commissioner is trying to respond properly. However, the investigation he announced is insufficient. It is inadequate. The police cannot investigate themselves when the allegations are about them in their senior ranks. We need more than just a foreign police officer or 2 to assist the police with the investigation. The Commission of Inquiry is a Bahamian legal tool. There is an act that governs commissions. It allows for the creation of truly independent investigation body. A commission would have hearings in the open where the public may attend. The Bahamian people would have the confidence in the independence and openness of such commission. The member for Foxhill says he is against the commission of inquiry. Many strongly disagree with him. I disagree with him. That's democracy. I have that right and he has his right. Many Bahamians I have spoken with, including, Mr. Deputy, senior police officers and certain members of the judiciary believe that a commission is absolutely necessary. The Prime Minister has acknowledged the allegations are, and I quote, terribly disturbing, end quote. The Prime Minister should take the next step and invite the Governor General to initiate a commission of inquiry. We must get to the bottom of the relationship between members of the police force and other security officers and gangs. A commission of inquiry, Mr. Deputy, in its report, would also help us to know what is needed to reform the police force and possibly other security forces. The commission inquiry would allow us to reset the dial for the Bahamas and moving forward. It allows us a non-political promotionary system within the force and other institutions. It would allow us to structure a proper salary scale for the police, knowing what they do. Yes, and I'm sure many on that side agree that the police is underpaid. And maybe they should have a system like the judges, where it is reviewed very so often and salaries adjusted accordingly. It would allow also, Mr. Deputy, for the respect to remain within the police force. If the Prime Minister fails to call for a commission of inquiry, this would strongly suggest that the Prime Minister and his government are not interested in fully investigating the allegations made and any other related matters and potentially new allegations. There are many, many out there, of which I would not repeat at this time, nor would I say. This potentially extraordinary scandal has occurred at a time when this Prime Minister is our head of government. History and the Bahamian people will judge what he does to fully get to the bottom of what has happened. History, Mr. Deputy, and the Bahamian people will judge if he makes sure reforms occur. History and voters will judge whether he acts or whether he fails to act. This is a defining moment for this Prime Minister. The Bahamian people are watching very, very closely. So are various international partners. During the drug era, a previous PLP government kept refusing the appointment of a commission of inquiry. Eventually, because of the extent of the corruption and the demands of the Bahamian people, the opposition, and the media and others, a commission was finally called. A former Prime Minister was forced to act because he had been labeled, because we had been labeled as a nation for sale. And because other governments were alarmed about the corruption in our country, which flowed across their borders. The failure, Mr. Deputy, to call a commission of inquiry on the allegations now before us will result in major fallout for this government and this Prime Minister. They can try to deflect and delay in all kinds of ways. It will not work. The brewing scandal before us is only going to get worse. I repeat, there are a lot more to come. It cannot be managed. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be swept under the carpet. As others have said, while history may not exactly repeat itself, it sometimes rhymes. History is rhyming. We are now confronted, Mr. Deputy, with perhaps the greatest allegations of corruption and scandal since the 70s and 80s. Mr. Deputy, I support the bill before us. The days, weeks, and months ahead will prove pivotal for our Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, the PLP has always prided itself on being the party for the poor. I was disturbed when I read the CFL report about, I always forget the name of this company, so I always refer, you always remember, attach it to something. So I attach it to our examination of the past, BJC, Bahamas Grid Company. Bahamas Grid Company. Mr. Deputy, Bahamas Grid Company was established just, I want you to listen carefully, just in 2023. It's alleged a non-bidding process. And they wanted to move along with the transmission and distribution component of BPL. That's the area that they would be confined or responsible for or purchase.
Let me get a second stab at getting it.
$130 million. Mr. Deputy, what disturbed me is they offered what we call preferential shares to raise $100 million. But individuals who purchase would get 8% return on their monies. 8%. Banks give you 0, but you'd get 8%. No. Now, a party that loves the poor, Mr. Deputy, the minimum share starts at $50,000. How many out here can afford $50,000? You have automatically garnered a select group. You have eliminated the poor. Mr. Deputy, when we did the port, shares were as low as $1,000 to incorporate everybody, as many as possible, not $50,000. Only some in here could afford $50,000. All right, only some in here could afford $50,000. But you've excluded the Bahamian people, those who you say you protect and you love.
Shame.
So, Mr. Deputy, those individuals at $50,000 minimum investment, presumably the politicians, the elite, the wealthy, etc., would get 8% return. That's a preferred share so that the public would understand. Give me 3 minutes, Mr. Deputy. A preferred shares so that the public would understand is basically a loan. So they loaned the company $100 million. So the company still fell short of $30 million. The $30 million they offered as ordinary shares to an elite group, maybe 10 or 12 individuals. So those 10 or 12 individuals would own this company, not those with the $100 million. They got their 8%. So take your 8% return and go, you finish. But those who invest the $30 million, the 10 or 12 individuals whom we want to know who they are, those individuals at the end of 1 year, Mr. Deputy, will receive a return based on the projections. They would receive a return of over $10 million. And at the end of their contract, those 10 or so individuals whom we want to know who they are, we want to know who did you cherry pick and give all this money to. Were they politicians? Who are they? Were they elite? Who are they? I know it ain't me. I ain't that. I can say that with certainty. So those 10 or 12 individuals, because there are security laws, which meant that it can't go beyond a certain numbers. So there's 10 or 12 individuals, Ms. Deputy, now this is the hard part. At the end of the first year, they receive a $10 million profit. And they receive profit every year. And Mr. Deputy, then the contract, you know what they would receive? A little less than $500 million. Who are those 10 individuals? Or is it 12? Or is it 5? Who are they? That's all I want. But, and you say you love the poor? You don't love the poor. You're giving a gift to the wealthy. When we did the port did certain things. There were many who could not afford to buy shares. A part of the agreement was that they would make $10 million available so that those individuals who could not afford shares could borrow the money and buy their shares, interest-free loan, and their dividends that they make could repay their loan. That shows that you love the poor. You're helping those who don't even have the money. You're giving them an opportunity. That's what we did. We did not pick out 8 or 10 individuals to give them almost $500 million.
Y'all didn't
$500 million?
Y'all didn't know that.
Mr. Deputy, Jesus Christ, I just get not. You give me another 5 minutes? Oh, take it. Yeah, see, they tell you this, so I know for certain you're not part of it. They tell you this. The port, we also made available to ensure that the Small Business Development Center, a center set up by us to give grants and loan to the poor man to start their business, to be entrepreneurs. We were going to make amendments to the Small Business Act so that they could get loan because individual businesses are now in their homes. Technology has changed so that your houses now become your business places, which meant that they could have gotten loan with the amendment to even purchase land or their home. Grants from the Small Business Development, and that was the plan moving forward. But the port provide extra money for Small Business Development Center. They provided money for BAIC. They provided money. I just like the facts, you know. I like the facts. They provided money for green management, But they did not choose 8, 10, or 12. I'm sure you can tell me who they are. I want to know who they are. The public want to know who they are. Who you giving almost $500 million at the end of the contract. And from the first year, they're receiving $10.25 million in profit. Year one. Mr. Deputy, I have a lot more to say, but I'm getting tired. So may God bless our Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member.